Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Aurovilians. Today it is a great honor to have Lara with us. And my first question to everyone is always, how did you first hear of Sri Aurobindo and Mother, and then how did you hear of Auroville?
This is why I thought that I would read to you a poem.
Good, very good. Please do. You can begin with a poem, that would be wonderful.
Okay, maybe we'll do it that way. All right. Okay. Our relationship with Mother is timeless, eternal. She was always there, watching, waiting, for us to wake up, for us to walk into the chamber. Her patience was infinite, her presence slicing through the space where time stood still. All who ask sincerely find her, even if it takes them decades to see. So yes, the solitary child on the stone, the wandering young woman in the river, locked for long years in the wandering halls of her thoughts. She found her a long time ago, and yet only today, each and every day she asks sincerely. I wrote this because I think the answer to your question is boring in some ways, because I came to Auroville not knowing anything about Auroville until about 2 weeks before I got on the airplane. And I came as a PhD student from Switzerland, and I came with a research agenda because I was working on affordable housing construction in Ethiopia and other monsoon climates in the global south. And for many different reasons, I found the Auroville Earth Institute. I had known about it for a long time because in my field, building with earth and with vaulting, it's one of the best known institutes in the world. So I had known about the Earth Institute a long, long time, but I really didn't know anything about Auroville. And I think this was a huge blessing for me in disguise, because had I known, then I may not have come. I think I may have had too much prejudice, too much expectation.
So back to my boring question. How did you hear of Mother? Or Sri Aurobindo?
Well, really, I encountered them when I came. No?
So you came primarily for Auroville?
I came primarily for Auroville and for the Earth Institute and for my work, and many, many surprises lay within that seed.
Certainly.
Yeah. And but when I arrived, then even before I came, my family had really some feeling I wasn't coming back.
I know that story.
For a lot of different, on a lot of different levels, for a lot of different reasons.
Sure.
But, there was something that was calling for me in coming here. There was something in me that was calling for Auroville for many years without quite knowing what I was calling for, what I was looking for, quite where my home was. And maybe even it took me 6 or 7 years in Auroville before I really realized that I was home.
And how long have you been here now in Auroville?
7.5 years.
7.5 years. Living where?
At the Earth Institute.
At the Earth Institute.
Yeah.
So you're continuing your work in that area.
I am. At the moment, I'm slightly more transient, but yeah.
So you've written this beautiful poem about Mother, but you still haven't told me anything about her.
I think, I'm somebody who's been searching all of my life and followed a lot of different spiritual traditions, literary, philosophical traditions.
Could you tell me some of them?
Existential philosophy, transcendentalism. I read a lot of Heidegger for many years. Which ironically resonates so much with Sri Aurobindo, and except I didn't understand until many years later that he understood the things that Heidegger was not understanding and really struggling with. So I've always been seeking, and it really wasn't until a few years into being in Auroville that I started reading Sri Aurobindo, and I felt like Mother brought me here, but I had kind of a big chip on my shoulder for some years, like I wasn't ready to be indoctrinated or something like this. Like I wasn't. I needed space and time to come to know them on a profound spiritual level and develop a relationship over a longer period of time. In the last year and a half, I've been reading so much of Sri Aurobindo's work, and even it wasn't until quite recently that I started reading Savitri. It's like, and you can't believe it, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like the story that's written inside of all of us. So it took me a long time to listen to the level where I could actually connect with Mother, connect with Sri Aurobindo, really understand on a deeper level their lives' work.
Where is your home? Your first home?
My first home.
Your parents' home, where you were born?
Well, I was born. Okay, that's easier. My first home, I'm still looking for it. No, maybe I found it. But so I grew up in Rhode Island, smallest state, East Coast, USA.
I know it well. I know it very well.
I grew up on a small island in the middle of the bay. So islanders are always philosophically inclined, I suppose, and I was even a solitary on an island itself. But yeah, so.
And your education?
My education. Yeah, I mean, I had public school education with some just great, really dedicated teachers for a long time. And then when I went to college, I went to art school, Alfred University, a very obscure but incredible culture of material science and fine arts.
State?
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York.
Way upstate, yeah. So New York State College of Ceramics. And I tried every medium in the world, but none of them fit me.
I see.
Until I started working with stone, and I found the masonry, and I found the poetry inside of that.
I find great poetry in stone.
Yes.
And I've written a poem called The Stonemason.
Oh.
And my friend Uday Arya published a long article with the poem in it.
Really?
Because at the end I speak of the poetry of stone. And my father was a landscaper.
Is that right?
Yes, and he and I designed Japanese gardens. And he built walls without concrete or lime.
Oh, he was doing dry work.
He was doing dry work.
That's where I started.
And that is the most, for me,
sublime. Sublime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because the pieces, they just touch in the most perfect way, and
they'll come into your hand.
Yes. Well, I mean,
be placed in the right area.
I mean, that's why, for me, I developed such a love and a fondness for Popo so quickly, because it was like, people who know the stone with their hands, it changes their minds completely. And like Sisyphus was a little bit the story of my life, but when you have to move that much material, then your body and your mind actually work towards a kind of poetic efficiency. So I would unpack a whole palette of stone And then each time I would touch the stone, I would remember it in this way. And then I would be piecing the work. Of course, you don't want to move a stone 100 times before you lay it. So then when you find the pattern that actually calls for the piece, then there's that sense of that calling of that piece.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, it's a sort of, it's not just this kind of rote engagement of memory. It's like a searching for the perfect fit.
And where did you do this?
I started working with a landscape architect by the name of Michael Varaca in Rhode Island after I was in art school, and he was my first guru in the stone arts and also in the hardy or in the hardy trees and shrubs.
Temperate climate.
Temperate climate zones,
yeah.
5 through 7, yeah.
5 through 7.
But native and ornamental North American tree species, East Coast. So I started, I was studying a lot the nomenclature and the identification and then morphology, and then I was teaching a little bit about sort of taxonomic processes and identification, and then I lost the trees for more than 15 years. Until they came back, only at the Garden of the Unexpected.
I see.
Wow. So I was working in landscape for some years. Also, I moved to New York City, and I was working in the very early green roof movement there, when we were trying to actually, talk about ecology and urban ecology. Yeah. At the beginning.
Did you know any people there who were associated with Sri Aurobindo, or?
Not at all.
Not at all.
No, not in the least.
Not all this time. Only until you came to Aurobindo.
Only until I came here. Only until.
And what degrees do you have?
So I have my undergrad degree was in fine arts and studio art, with a critical discourse minor, so I was reading a lot of philosophy, and then there was a gap where I went back and I was working in masonry and landscape for 5-6 years in the field, and then I realized that there were certain gaps in my knowledge, and I went and studied architecture at MIT, working with a structural masonry engineer that was there. So it was some hard, difficult years for me because, the architects, they're allergic to trees, so.
How true. I've had to face that for so many years.
I mean, literally.
No trees at Matrimondio.
Literally. No, but.
We must be able to see the Matrimondio from all positions. And yet 35% of it is blocked off by the banyan tree.
But the health of human beings, for one, gardening in this climate.
Absolutely.
The health of plants needing overstory shading in this climate.
And windbreaks.
The
From
west
the
wind,
hot
summer breaks, and all of this stuff. So.
I've rarely heard anyone say that they've enjoyed seeing the Cassia Fistula here. It was nice to hear. It was very nice to hear.
Well, you don't.
That.
I don't know. I was just like, I don't think of it as a street
say,
tree.
Oh, imagination, beautiful tree, yes.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
And it is imagination, but it is also Cassia Fistula, and we should not forget Linnaeus's work, nor the importance of the Latin, which is understood by all the nations of the world.
Yeah, surely. I have a spreadsheet now because I had learned so many trees, hundreds of trees, zone 5 through 7, but when I came here, it didn't translate at all.
Not at all.
I was saying for years at the beginning, Joss, get me started. I don't know where to start. Everything looks the same here.
Yeah.
And
there's a saying, you may have heard it, may not, but it is said that 90% of the research on plants has been in temperate climates.
yeah,
Yet 90% of the world's plants are in the tropics.
totally.
So you can see how little has been done.
If you crack open a botany book, and you go to the chapter on tree ring morphology, of hardy trees and shrubs.
Yes.
All of it is written from a temperate climate perspective. It only talks about annual rings, early wood, late wood, counting the annual cycles, and then all of the structure and so forth and so on. It doesn't translate here at all. And when I learned that, my mind was blown. As slowly as I was working, because I started 1 year ago almost working in the forest, and it's completely changed my life.
Working where?
In Darkali Forest in the American zone, in the international zone. So where Darkali Forest planted in the international zone, there's a bit of overlap. So they've helped me kind of begin there to transfer over the stewardship for the American zone, but with this idea of really honoring this incredible 30-year extremely diverse indigenous forest that's been planted there. So I just finished the survey. Almost 70 species in 3.5 acres, tree species. Okay, 3 is cheating, it's more shrubs. But super diverse, right? Really super. And then all of this year, just the learning process and unlearning process. I learned so much tree identification 20 years back by bud identification, single scale, fuzzy bud, imbricate, valvate, whatever. You can see all of the different bud types, but it's temperate climate. Here, when the water comes, the growth comes, there's no need for protection.
Yeah.
So
it's incredible.
The poetry of these
in the
things.
early 70s, I had the honor of growing thousands and thousands of trees each year for the green belt.
Crazy.
And there are people like Jean and Colleen who will take me there and show me a 70-foot tree and say, "You gave us this." And I used to go with the conservators of forests into the Western Ghats. And we would collect seeds together. I had seed exchange programs all over the world.
So was that at the beginning when...
It's at the very beginning, 69 to 81.
Oh, wow.
12 years I spent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Because I know...
And Shally was with me all the time.
Is that right?
Yes.
Incredible. I mean, I still is yet to start going into the sacred groves, and I'd really like to do that, to see... to see the sort of progenitors, if you will, of everything that's here. But I love hearing the stories about the early generation, horticulturists, botanists, landscape people, foresters that are going into those places and collecting those specimens. And going, by the way, to the place that, for spiritual reasons, for religious reasons, secured the whole biodiversity of the entire coastal ecosystem.
I used to take small groups into the Ghats.
Wow.
And we would all study them. Yap was one of them.
Wow.
Tina was another.
Oh my, how old were they at that time?
They were in early 20s, I think.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then Jas, of course, and I.
Oh my God.
And Walter.
And Aurobindo also?
Aurobindo was too young then. Too young in the 70s. Well. So the other thing was that the Lalbagh in Bangalore, when I first came, we had collected all kinds of seeds from Southern California with our group there.
Right.
And I brought them, and I grew many, many different species. I brought an entire van to the Lalbagh as a donation.
Wow.
And they were generous in return and gave me all the rare hibiscus that Mother made.
That's right, you're a hibiscus man.
Yeah. Well, plumeria mainly, first of all, but then hibiscus.
Right. Well, the plumeria section in the nursery, which is just across the road from where I've been working. I can actually see it through the tree canopies a little bit. This absolute stunning plumeria collection.
Yeah, not so many are left now, but there were still.
There were more?
I had 300 different ones. Yeah, I had 300 varieties.
Incredible.
Most of them got to the U.S., got to Thailand, and they did a plumeria garden honoring me in Thailand.
Wow.
They have huge collections now. But back to you, because this is your moment to share, and you've been sharing so beautifully. I'd like to get back to some of the works you've been reading of Sri Aurobindo, and those that have touched you most deeply.
Well, even if I haven't finished it, Savitri is the latest, and I definitely feel that it has touched me deeper than any of the other work, because it actually reaches us at a place that's not. And even as much philosophy as I've read, I realized that in the beginning years, I would pick up Life Divine and I would start reading it, and, too many walls came down in the mind. It took me a while before I realized that one has to read it out loud in order to feel the inner voice speaking.
Absolutely.
And in order to kind of let go of those moments of control where we need to understand something in a super rational kind of way.
Yeah.
Although my experience reading Heidegger helped me a lot with reading Sri Aurobindo, because they were speaking about a lot of the same things. Heidegger was reading the Upanishads and not really understanding. Sorry, Heidegger. But like, just there's a way of writing that they share, Sri Aurobindo and Heidegger, that is a kind of like such a profound search that allows one to be lost. But the lucidity of Sri Aurobindo's writing is no lost. No. We are lost. We can be lost within it, but he is lucid all the way through.
And Savitri, for me, is mantra. It's been my entire life.
Yeah.
I've written many books on Savitri, compilations more on themes. I have recorded the entire Savitri.
Didn't Shally say that you did like an entire encyclopedic compendium of all of the meanings of the...
I've done 2 books. One is the first one I did was, I now have to think of the supplement. The supplement that I did was from the yogis in the ashram and yoginis, who I valued very much. And they defined different words: Amal Kiran, Alok Pandey, Jumur, Nolini, Madhav Pandit, so many of them. The first one is a compilation. It's actually I called it it's a line from Savitri. It's called The Lexicon of an Infinite Mind. And it's from 2 lines in Savitri. We're here, the first lexicon of an infinite mind, translating the wonders of eternal bliss. So I thought that's a perfect title, Lexicon of an Infinite Mind.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And in that, I stayed with all of Sri Aurobindo's definitions first, and Mother's. And then I went to the Oxford Dictionary. And I did that research with my wife. We did it for years. And then I wrote to Oxford for permission, and they said, oh, you have used so many words. Definitions. We charge £300 per definition. And so I had to scrap the whole thing and go to the internet dictionary.
Oh, God.
And start over.
Oh, you're joking me. Oh, that's shameful. I'm sorry.
It was shameful.
This is shameful of Eurocentric Western knowledge.
Well, and greed for money, too.
That's silly.
Also.
You should have told them that then they should stop selling encyclopedias that are £300.
Yeah, and not allow you to use a quote.
No, I mean... that heavy, huh?
Yeah, right.
No, that's silly. No, that's completely silly.
So you said you were in Switzerland for a while.
Yes, yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
So when I finished my grad studies at MIT,
You had a master's?
I got a master's in Masters of Architecture, and before it was even finished, I was invited to go to Ethiopia and build a vault for affordable housing. And so within like 2 weeks of finishing there and cleaning up my apartment, I was on a plane for a 2-day layover in Switzerland, and then I was just dropped in the middle of Addis Ababa on a construction site in Addis that I spent I can't remember how many weeks training masons on scaffolding and building and teaching some students from Switzerland. But that was as a kind of doctoral research position based at the ETH Zurich, is the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich. And then I did that work and on this affordable housing prototype, and then went back to Switzerland. And then in the ensuing, I guess, 2 or 3 years after that, I spent pretty much all of my time bopping back and forth between Switzerland, Ethiopia, Switzerland, Ethiopia, Switzerland, Singapore, Switzerland, Ethiopia, Switzerland,
Whoa.
UK, and then I came here as like my second case study, but it was a bit like lost.
Did you get your doctorate in Switzerland?
No, I left it when I came here. Yeah, I realized the futility of it.
Many people have had this experience.
Yeah.
Many people.
Well, I'm very critical of the methodology of doctoral research, because it actually makes itself quite obsolete. It's another topic, but but ultimately, in the end, I've always been more of a craftsperson than a researcher. Of course, I love research, but it's more like the research of the craft.
Consciousness in your hand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. The consciousness, the listening,
Yes.
The listening. Like, I loved so much when I would build a shell, I would have my hands on it, and I could feel all of the vibrations in the shell, even on a very physical level. Thinking about,
Ah, yes.
so somebody knocks the shell and you can feel the frequency transmitted through the shell, and actually your body and your intuition can distinguish whether or not it's stable or not stable. So all the structural engineers, they have to do like complex calculations or three-dimensional analyses to tell you if it's stable or not, and all you have to do is put your hand on it.
Yes. Did you have any experience like that in the Om choir?
Oh, very good question.
Yeah.
Very good question. There was some structural instability, yes. I'm kidding.
Always.
I'm kidding.
It's a given. So many different souls.
But you have so many
coming every
people that
week.
just drop in. I was shocked. There was a half of them came for the first time,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
how must that? I guess you must give up a whole lot of control around what it means to, bring a kind of choral cohesion to people who have
I
never.
leave it to her.
Huh?
I just wave my hands.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's what one must do, no?
Yes.
My mother was a singer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I sing.
Opera?
I sing. Oh no.
No.
Opera. No, church music, choral music.
Choral music.
She loved singing Latin hymnals and German music and everything. She would sing everything. But I used to, growing up, I remember sitting on the wooden pews and staring up at the ceiling and just feeling like hearing all of this choral music bounce off of the ceiling back and shape the space and the sound.
Yeah.
And my mother's communion with God was always through her music.
Were you at all religious at a young age?
I was deeply spiritual and very solitary and deeply, deeply searching and deeply questioning. I wouldn't call myself ever having been properly religious, but I went through different phases, for sure. But I had a lot of baggage to punch through when it came to Western Christianity, like
Yes.
and it wasn't until I started working in highlands Ethiopia with Christianity that came second century AD to North Africa, that kind of bypassed all of the genocide of the, genocide, the role of Christianity and the rewriting of the North American continent. So.
It
took me some time to kind of bury that hatchet.
Transition, yes, it's a big transition, isn't it? And then it happens.
Yeah.
And so for you, it took a little while in Auroville, but then it happened.
Yeah. Well, I just, I was moving too fast. I was doing too much. I wasn't listening. Mm-hmm. So it's happening all of the time. It's just whether or not we're listening to it.
Yes, it's happening all the time.
And ironically, is you were in the U.S. with Shally having heart surgery at the time that all of that beginning of the Garden of the Unexpected happened. But ironically, it was the Garden of the Unexpected that brought me back to the path, brought me back 20 years in my work to the trees and shrubs, brought me back to masonry in the sense of landscape masonry, brought me to Mother, and brought me to Sri Aurobindo's work in a way that I had not previously been brought.
I see.
So,
can you elucidate a little more?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I just I had been writing a lot more. I had started the cycle of the last year and a half of writing a lot more poetry. So I was listening, and I had made some changes in my life to really ensure silence in these critical periods of the day, where we seek most, like the mornings, the early mornings are really precious moments of silence in my life, for the listening, for the writing, for the kind of consciousness of coming into the day. So I had made some changes in my life and was writing a lot, and then this garden came. It really spoke to me. It was like something was calling me, and then I kind of started following the call, and then, and then I went to Tina and Walter, and Tina sent me to Oronavi at Darkali Forest, and and then like a whole series of things unfolded, and it was a beautiful study in a way, but like there was a whole lot of behind the scenes of the study was the kind of call that was happening behind that. So there was a strong, strong call that was coming through this creative work. And it felt so perfect and so right. And then the Garden of the Unexpected thing completed. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not how it was supposed to end. It was supposed to end differently than that. And then within, a month, or not even, within like a few weeks even after Mona and Joss's garden was finally, they presented the synthesis to the community after we worked together for a couple months on and off. Within, I don't know, I think even a week after that, I had bumped into Oronavi and said, I clean rottenness pruners, I clean my 15-year-old Felcoes, give me a job working in the forest. I'm on sabbatical for the first time in 15 years, and then I just started working in the forest. By the second day, I was in the American zone, and I didn't realize for some time. No, actually, within a really short period of time, I realized that it was completely written in the stars, and it was like those reciprocating waters of the xeriscape dry garden. It was like these magical, mysterious waters. They just drained out of the Matrimondir into the lake, down into the wadi, past the nursery, and into Darkali Forest. And that was what Mother wanted me to do. She knew that I fit much better in working in forest than in the eye of the storm.
Well, I would like to ask you if you would consider working with me in the gardens of the Matrimondir. Right now I'm the chairman of the group that's deciding on all the designs these architects from around the world send us. So they asked me to chair this.
To do this
we
again.
have 6 people
That's good.
total.
Well,
they're all landscape architects. They're all very highly qualified. But the gardens have not yet, it's not yet time for them to descend. It will take a lot more harmony and much greater love and unity for them to truly descend. So we're going to do 4 gardens, the next 4 gardens. And that's still only 7 gardens or so. And there's still 5 to go. And I would need help from kindred souls.
I can be a kindred soul there. I'm enormously grateful to the Matrimondier executives for the kind of experiment of the Garden of the Unexpected, partially because it landed me where I'm supposed to be, even if it's not really for the present moment in the Matrimondier Gardens. But I think that it was a really good, one of the few quite successful case studies in participatory design process,
I was out there
involvement
the day
of the
children
community.
came to plant.
Oh, did they?
Oh,
How was
yes.
it? I wanted to go.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The little ones were planting everything.
Were there a lot of Auroville kids? And
Mostly only Auroville kids.
Wow, that's awesome.
It was very special.
That's
Mona
great.
and I went all over, and Fred and many of the others. Luca came. But there are things that were done there that were not so good. They butchered the integral wisdom tree so they could put a pond below it. As you just enter, there's a huge Albizia Lebec integral wisdom.
Did they prune it?
They pruned one side of it, the south side, and now it's a little bit.
I'm going to have to do my homework and see what happened,
that you
because
have to
I'm.
look at. You see, I would never have put a pond there by the root systems.
Oh, I see.
The root systems should not be disturbed like that.
I love the Albizia Lebec. I have in the forest only one teeny tiny one, but enough so that it got on the survey.
Yeah, it's a tough tree.
It doesn't.
all over Pondy.
It
It'll
doesn't.
be very big and very well. As you enter
We'll see.
the Matrimondier, you have the
No. I remember.
plumeria on the
But
left.
seriously, at the beginning of that, it was barely just. I was like, okay, well, let's start with 101 identification in tropical climates. I mean, I remember that there's a Kadama, that there's a Ficus religiosa, that there's the integral wisdom, there's the other wisdom.
Yes,
And-
Samania Saman.
Samania Saman, yeah. Which, why they also call it Albizia Saman, I don't know.
No, it's incorrect.
Yeah,
Samania is
yeah,
more
yeah,
correct.
yeah.
There are many Albicias. You probably knew the one in Zone 7, Albizia julibritzi.
Yeah, Julie Brisson.
Lovely-
How can we
lovely
forget?
fellow.
It was completely lovely. She called me all the way from that side, but it was for me Ficus benjamina that called me most.
Oh.
Ironically, in my New York City years, in New York landscapers in the winter years, they are subjected to some horror of Christmas holiday stuff, and I used to do a lot of street tree pruning to put the Christmas tree lights on Columbus Avenue and Fifth Avenue. But I would try to get these guys not to just completely, like horribly prune these trees, but to do it gently. And then in the winter years, then I would go into all of the offices and have to take care of their terrible tropical plants in their heated and HVAC offices. I used to go into Ian Pei's office, his Midtown office, and I was trying to get a job there. So every single time I had to go in to take care of the plants, then I was begging with the secretary, please give me a job, please give me a job. And she's like, get away, kid, And then I would go, and then I would sort of clean all of the dead leaves off of Ficus benjamina. And then I was flirting with the architect, saying, this is how you prune a Ficus benjamina, and Ficus, And of course they were charmed, but they never gave me a job. And then one of the last trees that I identified in this area in the American zone was Ficus benjamini. I remember having this realization.
I'm looking at it. I get it.
Or it was this tiny little thing that was constantly leaving its leaves all over an architect's office.
Let's jump to Savitri again,
Okay.
because it has been my world, my life for 60 years. And A.B. Purani gave me the first book many, many years ago, late 50s.
I can read you a second poem if you want.
I would love to.
Because I was thinking, when you thought, I'll ask you about how you first encountered the mother, then I wrote two poems, and one was the one I read before, and then the other one was thinking more about Sri Aurobindo and the work of Sri Aurobindo.
Wonderful.
I'm writing too much right now. It may just be that Savitri is the story of my life, thrown like a seed within the dolmen, the dark sacred space where solstice shines the light on our souls. On the first day of my becoming, where the hospital walls towered and turned around the heart to protect, before the last brick, before the incantation, the closing of the heart, emotional exile, Sri Aurobindo heard the call, threw his grain of wisdom for the solitary mind, to reflect for all the life upon the God space, brick by brick, the becoming, stone by stone, the revealing, laying and removing, the lifelong meditation within the sacred hollow of the heart. So it's very crazy and ironic to me that it took me so long. Even Ratna was saying to me very recently when I met her, she said, but I would think that Savitri would speak to you more than anything else. And she completely knew, because we've been talking, Ajit was a dear friend. We'd talk about the masonry and the buildings and the restoration and all of this stuff. But it's like the whole book is just completely rife with the themes of the maker, the craftsman, the mason, the architect, the overlay between environment and human-built landscape, the sacredness of the architecture of the earth.
And you're seeing it from a very different background, which is very interesting, because many, of course, see it from the Vedas, the Upanishads.
But I never read the Upanishads.
Nor did I. I don't think it's a failing or any lack. I think it's just that we've been brought here in another way.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of the poetry, is it not? Especially in Sri Aurobindo's perspective of the poetry, his whole philosophy of the poetry is the poetry is like a short circuit to the heart. It's like you can cut through all of the mental and just go straight into the heart space. And the plants love it, by the way, when you read to them.
Good.
The trees are sort of...
Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nora. Yeah.